And we're live. I'm just kidding. I thought that would be cool. I don't know.
I felt
Hello.
like I'm on a. Oh,
Welcome to,
welcome back.
yes, morning coffee.
Sorry, I ruined your intro.
You're fine. You're fine. No worries. If they clicked here, they know where they're being welcomed to. So we hope you listened to our past two episodes, the Light Rose and the regular morning coffee episode, which we talked about. What did we talk about?
Pet peeves.
Pet peeves. Yes. Haha. You know, it's so funny when I was editing, when I was talking about my pet peeves, so I was kind of viewing it as if I were a different person. And so whenever I was talking about my pet peeves, I was honestly like agreeing with everything I was saying. I was like, yes, I know. And then it kind of occurred to me like that is so lame. Because
Of
obviously
course, I agree.
exactly. But I thought it was funny because I caught myself kind of like, oh yes, like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I'm like, that's so weird. I mean, obviously it's me, so yes, I do know what I'm talking about. But anyway, yes. So hopefully, if you don't know what we're talking about, go watch it. I thought that was cool. So anyway, and then other than that, just as always, share some love, and yeah, let's just jump in.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Oh, well, we haven't even said what we're talking about.
Nope. I'll let you take
Okay. So I guess we're just gonna be talking about things we kind of miss or like reminisce our childhood, things that were, made an impact or kind of traumatized us, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So no, I mean, this is as authentic as you're gonna get, because Carolina and I, in the previous episodes, like when we would, before you could see our faces, we would kind of just, I mean, we never actually shared our notes or anything, but
Yeah.
we always like preview, just like, oh, by the way, I kind of went this direction. But lately with face to face, we honestly have no idea what we've written down on our notes, what we plan to say. So just know that it is a general topic, because we are just we're gonna allow ourselves to see where the wind blows. So this can really go in any direction, because childhood is quite a huge chunk of your life.
Yeah.
Which actually, oddly enough, it doesn't make up most of it. I think adulthood.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, adulthood's like the biggest category. You got like your childhood, which is like, what is it? Birth to like 12 maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're a teen, and then you're an adult.
Well, and the thing is, you're a young adult, so you're
Well,
at the
yeah.
point where the older people don't want to take you very seriously, and the younger people think you're like super cool, or at least think, oh wow, like they're grown. And then that's like the weird in between stage. And then you have this like, oh, okay, you're an adult now, so just have fun. And do that for the rest of your life until until that's it. I guess until you go to the category of like gray hairs and stuff.
So old.
Yeah.
I actually can't wait till I have a full head of gray hair. I think that'd be cool.
Okay, so my mom actually, her gray hairs, she has, you can't really see it because she still does the old school, like little, I don't know. But she has streaks of like gray hair. Like it looks like she dyed her hair gray. And I always tell her, like, you could honestly rock it. Like you could rock it.
Yeah.
Out. But she's always trying to dye her hair, like to cover it up. I'm like, dude, I've seen people try to make it look good, and yours like naturally just kind of, she has streaks. Like, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the best case scenario, instead of just getting like a whole bunch of small ones and then like overall. Like my mom dyes her hair. I'm like, Mom, you really don't need to. Like you can't even tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, just leave it. Gray hair is a great thing.
Yeah.
I want it.
But I guess when we get there, we'll, like anything, right? Like anything, any phase in life, once you pass it up, you look back and you're like, I should have done this, or you look forward to the next, or I don't know. It's weird because honestly, I was the type of child, or at least preteen, teenager, that couldn't wait to grow up. And
Yeah.
so that's why I guess looking back, and this episode is kind of special, but also kind of like a bummer, because now that I am in adulthood, I'm looking back
Yeah.
like, like I really wish I could have told myself, or go back in time, and I would have just embraced it more, honestly. And I had my siblings would tell me like, hey, enjoy being young, enjoy being a kid and all of that. And you just kind of get into this like, but I want, like,
Yeah.
you just envision this excitement and whatnot. And it's not to say that it's not, like, if you're young and you're watching this, adulthood can be fun for sure. Just comes
Yeah, but
with
there's
responsibility.
bills. That's a
Yeah.
big one. Be
Yep.
thankful you don't have those.
So, and honestly, I'm the kind of person that, like, I second the whole, wishing that in high school they would teach you more of these like
Hmm.
life skills, or things like that, because it's important. I mean, honestly, I feel like I've had this like shock factor, and it's mostly because, like, obviously, I mean, I was blessed to grow up in a home with my parents, and where they covered everything, and it wasn't like necessity per se for me to have
Hmm.
to work at 16. And you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
so I feel like I learned a couple of things much, much later. And so now, like with my husband's, like now, like, or now being married, you come across things that you probably would have never thought about. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what that means, but let me Google it, or let me ask adult to your adult to,
Yeah.
seek advice. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I I think that class, just even like a small class, basically just on taxes, they just did one. You're set. You're good. And like how to change your tire and stuff like that.
Oh, you
Yeah.
had that?
No, I think that'd be great.
Oh, no, for sure. Big
Yeah.
time. Like, there's just so many things. Like, I mean, honestly, like, just, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. And you know what? We could even make another episode of us just listening.
What I wish I'd known.
Yes, for sure. Because, like, for example, I'm just gonna throw this one in there really quick. I honestly was shocked how expensive like window blinds can be.
Yeah, that's like a random one.
And it's
But I
when you move in, okay, so obviously if you've come from a previous home and then you just transfer them over or whatever, like, I guess, but like when you move into your first home, I guess, and they don't have blinds and you want privacy, obviously that it kind of cuts in front of what you thought was a priority. And
mhm.
so you start to search for blinds, and then, I mean, obviously there are cheaper options, right? But even still, if your house happens to have a ton of windows, it adds up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So when you're looking for a house, there you go. There's a tip. Keep in mind that even the windows are good, but if they don't have blinds, that's going to be expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. Things we wish we would have known. But
But
whatever.
let's go to our childhood. Let's go back into our childhood and remember some really nice memories. So,
The
I
nice one? Oh, we're going with the nice ones first.
yes, and
Okay.
we can intertwine the bad ones. Okay, but I was actually going to ask you. I was asked this once before, um, but do you happen to actually like remember? I don't know if that's like a thing or not, but like your first memory
No
as
idea.
okay.
I mean, I already have a terrible memory, so
How old were you though?
I don't remember anything. I
Mm,
think oh, I think the earliest one I can remember, I was probably like 4, and it was just being forced to do a photo shoot with my brother.
mm.
But I think it was because it was a terrible experience. I'm just like, ugh. That's why I remember it.
You see, a lot of people say that they have memories when they were, well, see, okay. So I think 4 is pretty young, right? And I mean, when I see 4,
Hmm.
I'm like, wow, like, but
Yeah.
okay, so I have one memory of when we moved down from Chicago, and I remember, and it's very like almost like a dream, right? Because I only get like snapshots of it if I really try to remember. But it's
Hmm.
really just like the room where we would sleep in, it's not like a special event or anything. It's just from my perspective as a child of me seeing the room that we were in and all of that. And I don't know how old I was there. So that's very blurry. But like my like actual like how old are kindergartners? Or
Like
preschoolers. How about that?
5.
Preschoolers.
Preschool is 4, 3 or 4 depending, but it's mostly 4. And then kindergarten's like 5.
And I think I was 4. I'm impressed with myself. I used to always think I always had my first memory when I was 5. But then now I'm thinking right now, I was about to tell you a story and I'm like, wait, I think I was in pre-K.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was younger because I remember like kindergarten. I remember like pre-K. I remember things from that. Like
Mm,
I remember the room that like how it was set up, and then I
mm.
don't remember like the kids' faces or anything, but I still remember one kid's name.
There's always that one kid.
And yeah, they're like, I'll never forget that kid.
For that one teacher, honestly, my pre-K teacher was super mean. Like super mean. I know her name and everything, but I'm not gonna call her out because what are the odds that she would, I don't know. I'm not gonna call her out. She was mean. Oof.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember my pre-K or my kindergarten teacher, but I remember my first grade teacher because me and my brother both had her,
Okay.
so
I
it
loved
was
my
easy to remember that.
teacher. I loved her. I mean, I was young and then I still do talked a lot, right? But as a kid, obviously you can't, that's harder to control. But I wasn't
Yeah,
like rebellious talkative. It just I was very social. So it was kind of like I don't
it's
want
a
to sit.
distraction for others.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents always make fun of me because apparently one day I came home from school and told them that the teacher was had to pick between me and another girl or another student on who to put in the corner, and she chose me. And I was telling them the story like I had won a prize, like I was the chosen one to stand in the corner. And my parents still make fun of me because they're like, you were so cute, innocently thinking you had done something right when in reality you were basically confessing,
Yeah.
gotten in trouble. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think I was that young. I don't start remembering things until like somebody brings it up. I'm not like, oh, I remember this one time when I was 4 years old. No. Until someone's like, you remember? I'm like, oh yeah. And then
uh,
that's where everything starts kicking in. But no.
I will say though, one of the things I loved from school, I don't know, I'm just referring to school a lot, but I loved their honey buns. They were so delicious.
I don't.
I mean, like probably up until it was mostly my elementary years.
Yeah.
Buns, and they had this like little wrapped donuts or whatever. I don't even know what. Maybe it wasn't donut. I don't know, but it was in a circle. Um, and then obviously they had those little pouches of juice, those little like white little pouches of juice. You know what I'm talking
We
about?
had cartons. We had
We
like mini
eventually
cartons.
moved to cartons,
Okay.
but for the longest there were these little white pouches and they would freeze them. And so sometimes, obviously it was early in the morning, sometimes you would still get a little bit of slush is what we would call it. So it was really cool because if you got some slush, it was like it wasn't juice anymore. You felt like it was like some kind of like I not ice cream, but you know what I mean, like it's some kind
Yeah.
of
Like a slushy at 8 a.m. in the morning. Or 8 a.m. That does make sense. That was redundant. I just but yeah. No, like now I'm like we're starting to remember elementary school and I'm like everything's flooding back.
I'm telling
I'm like There it goes. Like I can remember, I don't remember anything from second grade,
Uh,
like at all. I don't remember anything from second or fourth.
Second grade was my worst year. I was bad. Not okay. You know
I
how
kind
I
of
was
blocked it
telling you
out.
before that I was talkative, but it was no bad intentions or not rebellious. But I think second grade, like towards the end of the school year, I started. I don't know if your school did this, but we would get E, S, N, and U as a conduct.
Yeah, like exemplary, satisfactory, and then
Uh,
I don't know the rest of them because
Unsatisfactory, and I forgot what the U was, or maybe it's the N is different and the U is unsatisfactory. I don't know. The point is that my towards the last few months, I think because every Friday we would take our conduct for the week. I
Mhm.
think I for the last 5 or 6 weeks, I always went home with an N or a U. And my dad, uh, it got to a point, so he waited to see, I guess, if it was a trend. And so once we got to like the sixth one, he was like, I'm going to spank you once for every N, and I'm going to spank you twice for every U. And honestly, like when he spanked me, it didn't hurt. But I quickly realized that if I didn't cry, he was going to hit me harder. So I faked that cry that one time.
Wow, look at you go.
Yeah, learned quickly.
Yeah. No, I wasn't bad,
Hmm.
because I was really quiet, so I never got anything. I never got in trouble, and so my grades are always okay. But my mom, we were recently going through like our photo albums and stuff. My
Hmm.
mom like had like a little packet full of my like grades and stuff, my report cards.
Hmm.
And my brother was like, "How come you don't have any of mine, mom?" I was like, "It's because I'm the smart one. And she kept all your baby pictures, okay? So I'm the smart one, and you're the cute one. You just gotta have to live with that."
So funny.
But,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
he had like a stack like this big of baby pictures, and then I have like 3 pictures.
Oh, wow.
But he's the only boy, so it makes sense.
That's true.
So
Amongst several women.
several, yeah,
What is four of y'all, right?
5, 5 counting me, and then
Girl?
my brother. Yeah, 5 girls and then 1 boy.
Oh, wow. I
Hmm.
forgot you guys were six.
Yeah, there's a lot of us. But I mean, I think it's because there's such a big gap between like the one half and the first half.
That is true.
Yeah, between me and my oldest sister, I think it's like 15 years. So
So in the beginning they were on a roll and then they just were like, eh.
yeah, they like quit, I guess, for a little bit, and then they had my brother, and then I was like, oopsie surprise that they're
Mhm.
stuck with forever now.
But I mean, like we always say, like with my little brother, like if he hadn't been born, then I mean I got married, right? So it would just be them two.
Yeah, they're done. Yeah.
So that's crazy. Let me see. I'm gonna look at my notes. Um, this is super random, but remember when we used to play Foursquare at church?
Yeah, that was like intense games.
I'll take okay, so I don't know like kids nowadays if you know what the game is. Foursquare, obviously the name implies it. There's four squares.
For sure.
You have to put up like bounce the ball around. There's obviously rules to it, but it gets very intense. You can't like the ball can't touch the line or there's
Yeah.
anyway. But as when I was writing that down, I started thinking about like how I actually played outside a lot, like with
Yeah.
neighbor friends. Obviously my parents still live in the house where we grew up, so now you don't see kids out and about. Like it's honestly a rare thing in my parents' neighborhood, right? Because
Hmm.
for the most part all those neighbors like didn't move, so they've been there forever, and so we know that like all of their kids, like we've all grown up and we've left,
Hmm.
so then there's like very few like younger kids, but it's really
Yeah.
rare to see them like on a bike or out and about. Like I mean it's crazy, but as opposed to before, like when during my sister's time, it makes it sound really old, but we're not that old. But still, like, when we were younger and yeah, I would play with leaves and it was my dirt was my food, and the water hose, and we would just play tag. Honestly, like that's when tag was like it, like tag
Yeah.
intended. You're it. Okay. Uh, or like hide and seek, like all those
Yeah.
games that you just, I don't know, we just didn't have electronics. Like that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, I mean, and then like it was like I think it wasn't as dangerous as it seems like it is now
The
than it
what?
was back then. Just like having kids outside, because my parents weren't like watching us constantly. It was like, hey, just be back home by like this before it gets dark or whatever,
Oh, that is a
and
good
that
point.
was it. Yeah, and so like right now, kids can't be out of sight, which is good, but
Mhm.
like so, and my neighborhood's the same way. Like all of us kind of grew up together, so all those kids are gone, but we have I think like one new neighbor who has kids,
Mhm.
and he's like my neighbor right next door, so his kids are playing in the backyard and rather than playing in the front yard.
Mhm.
So I think it's just I think it's safety, and then also on top of that is just the availability of electronics and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And it's not to say that like, I mean,
It's
I know
bad.
if somebody who's older than us is watching this or listening, they're probably thinking like, oh, like, yeah,
Back in my day.
exactly, right? So you can always trace it back like way before, right? But
Yeah.
I think that we were honestly, I think we were born in that transition, right? Because
Mhm.
this happened to me a lot at work, which it's not that it offended me, but it was also kind of just like, I mean, I know I don't look my age. I mean, for the most part, people think I'm much younger. But at work, like when they would talk about like drinking from the water hose and playing outside and stuff, like they would make it seem like I couldn't relate. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I did drink from the water hose and I did
Yeah.
play outside. But they were like, oh, you guys don't do that. You guys had electronics. And like, do you think I'm 12? Like,
Right.
like I feel like we were born in that like transition time where
Yeah, we get the benefits of like the younger generation with like the electronics and everything that advanced, but we also had like the same like old fashioned childhood that people try to like
yeah,
reminisce about. But it's like, okay, don't assume just because I'm younger that doesn't mean like I didn't have to deal with those things too.
right, exactly. Like, so it was just one of those things like when they would make those comments, it was just like they didn't give me a chance to relate because automatically they would like cancel me out. And it's like, wait, no, like I do remember, doing all of those things. Like I was
Mhm.
probably much younger and it didn't consist of my entire childhood,
Yeah.
but I did do those things. And then mostly also because I had older siblings, right? So there was a lot of us as well,
Mhm.
and so it was just kind of like, as the younger one at the time, you just entertained yourself with the best way that you possibly could. Like
Yeah.
I would talk to myself. Like I honestly did. I had imaginary people and friends and audiences. I would sing, and it was not weird to do so, right? Because it was
Yeah.
like, I mean, we didn't have cable, and I think we talked about this whenever we talked about like novelas and soap operas or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Episode. So cable to us, like even though TV was around and all of that, like it wasn't something that we were like fixated on. Like, and actually, one of the things I had on my list was I used to play with like those Hot Wheel cars back when Hot Wheel cars were actually 99 cents or like $1 at
Yeah.
Walmart. Now I think they're like
I
$1.50
think
or
yeah, I think it's like 237 for a 3 pack.
okay.
I recently bought one.
Okay.
Not for me, but for my nephew. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and my parents like so my parents really didn't give us an allowance. It was very
Yeah.
rare when they would give us $1. And so when we would go to Walmart, I would run to the boys section to go see what new Hot Wheels car I could get myself. Like I didn't start playing with Barbies until I was probably like 9,
Mhm.
8 or 9, and at that point
Yeah.
it was only because like my sisters, like, so my sisters are 6 to 9 years older than me, the closest one is my brother, who's 3 years older than me. So since we were like on the lower end, I hung out with my brother. What did my brother play with? He played with cars. So that's kind of where, like, that's why I would, like, that's what I was saying, like, you do
Yeah.
what your siblings do.
But I
So
think,
uh-huh.
yeah, because I relate to the same thing where we were like we're 3 years apart. I think me and my brother are 3 years apart. But I think once that time got when we were getting older, they didn't want to play with us anymore because they were getting older and they're hitting those teenage years. And it's like, okay, well, now I have to find the entertainment for myself. Can't just piggyback off what he's doing. Because I used to go outside and play like football with him and play like with his friends. And then they got older, and I was like, well, I don't really want to hang out with them if they're just going to sit there and do nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
So
well, we had neighbors at the time, like down the street, who would come over and they would play video games. And I grew up with video games. And so I remember that weird transition where, like, when I was younger, I was always in a room full of like boys, right? Because my cousins, my next door neighbor, which is my cousin, he was a boy. And then we had another cousin who was also a boy. So I hung out, I literally grew up with my brother and my two boy cousins. And so
mhm.
then when the boy neighbors would come over, I mean, again, my entertainment was
Yeah,
whatever, because I was closer to my brother at the time. And my sisters, you know, like, they were older, so they didn't want their little bratty sister hanging out with them. So I remember, though, like, the time period where it started to become like, oh, I can't think of the word, where it, like, it wasn't right. Like I remember my mom coming by and saying, hey, you know, like, or my sisters pulling me out of the room, kind of like, you know, like, it's no longer okay for you to be in a room full of just boys, you know. And I remember, like, turning 11 and turning 12, and it, like, the again, right, we're getting to that age, so that means our brothers were, you know, already in their teen years. So
yeah,
their playing was more aggressive, was more altered to this, like, I don't want to say mature, because, you know, guys don't mature that
that's
quickly
not.
either, but their I guess idea of fun was different. And then, of course, as an 11, 12-year-old girl, you're also entering a different stage in your life too.
Yeah.
So then there's this awkward, like, well, it's not like I have a ton of memories with my sisters,
Hmm.
and all I know is my brother. And now suddenly you're telling me that that's not that it's not okay, but, like, there's this, like, shift
Hmm.
in age, and then in what you I guess relate to. So I guess,
Yeah.
to your point, then you start to kind of feel like, okay, so how do I entertain myself now? I guess, well, what do I like to do now that I'm not depending on my brother to tell me what I like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's very interesting, honestly. And then also, I guess, from there you start to uh, develop, or really not rely on, but bond with other, like, girls your age,
Hmm.
you know. And of course,
Yeah.
that was a time period where we had that little group at church.
Yeah. I was like, that's all right. Like, because I know we've been friends for like ever, right?
Mm,
Like, there's documents, like pictured documents of us hanging out when we were younger. But I don't like physically remember us or mentally remember us. But I don't remember us hanging out until like we were like 11, 12. And we would go to each other's houses like on Sunday afternoons and like hang out. And I
mhm.
think that's what, like, or maybe it wasn't 11, it was a little younger, but that's when we started playing with Barbies because our friends had Barbies.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of, but then they also were older than both of us.
Yeah, that is
And
true.
so they phased out of it quicker, right?
Mhm.
And so we were kind of, then we were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be playing with this. And so I think for us, it was like a weird situation because everybody we hung out with was older than us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so in
Yeah.
this case, your family is like, okay, it's a boy, so they don't have that perspective.
Yeah.
And then in the friends area, they're older, right? So again,
Hmm.
it's like, just when you're thinking you can identify yourself with something, and then they're like, oh, no. And I also feel like during that time period, honestly, like, during those years, I that's what makes me cringe. I feel like those years are the ones where I was from 12 to 15 years old. I'm just like, I don't like talking about them, because obviously that's when like boys get involved too, because but the thing is, like, one of those like impactful moments is because our friends were older, and so
Yeah.
they were thinking about things that it's not wrong. And I've always told my girls from church, like, I tell them there's nothing wrong with liking a boy. It's like the action you take, right? Because you always
Yeah.
you know have precautions. But at that time, it's interesting that, you know, now that I look back, like that was very influential for me, because honestly,
Hmm.
like that, I don't think it would have crossed my mind if I would have been around, maybe like if it would have been just us, like young
Yeah. I
group.
feel like we would have been a little later than what we would have been. Because even for me, like I remember being like, "Oh yeah, I mean, I like them, but I'm not gonna do anything about it." I'm just like,
Mhm.
"Okay, yeah, cool." I mean, I'm still that way, but you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then I think for you, from what I remember, it was because we were hanging out with them, and so you were like, "Oh, I can take these next steps because this is the crowd I'm hanging out with." You know what I
right.
mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so, and I just remember, I think getting to that point where like it really turned into like a different, like, I guess, phase for them.
Hmm.
Then it's so weird how like it just kind of broke off. And then we just
Yeah.
kind of like, you and I were kind of like left the island, and we were like, Okay, so like,
Yeah.
let's just be our age then, you know, or like think
Yeah.
about what that means for us."
Hmm.
And that's when things started like transitioning, right? Then we were turning 16 and 17, and then we were focusing on like, I guess
Like
what
college and stuff, yeah. What we
right.
wanted to do, yeah. And
Mhm.
that's when we started, oh, sorry. We created, like, a new friend group, you know what I mean? That we were all in the same position or the same, like, phase of life or whatever, I guess. I don't know, it's a weird way to say. And so, like, we were able to, like, come together and talk about these situations and not feel like we were kind of going too far or going, like, in a position that was older than we were. Like,
Mm,
we were just in the perfect spot where we could all talk about it.
right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this is gonna be so nerdy, but it wasn't like in a huge like rounding error, if that makes sense. It was like plus or minus point 0.1,
Yeah.
and like, you know, because it seemed appropriate. Like, okay, this is within
Mhm.
a reasonable range of more or
Yeah.
less, rather than, you know, because somebody who's 2 years older than you, it makes a huge difference. Think about it. Like
Mhm.
someone who just turns 15 hanging out with somebody who's 17, they're thinking high school and you know, like, okay,
Eventually college, yeah.
right. And as a 15-year-old, you're still, I mean, again, you're still grasping what it means to be
Yeah, I
a
think
young girl.
15 you had what, just got into high school, I think?
At soft freshman year, yeah,
No.
turning 15. Well, for me, because my birthday's in September, so turning 15 my freshman
Oh,
year.
I was young, I was like 14.
Hmm.
That's also a thing, I'm the youngest person out of our friend group too.
Yeah.
But, um, yeah, like, for us, if they were 2 years older than us, we would have been in 7th grade, and they would be going into high school.
Hmm.
And so that even, like, the number that's, like, 2 years doesn't sound like a lot. The way, like, your maturity level is or whatever, I don't wanna say maturity level because we were children,
Hmm.
but, like, that difference is so big that we had to break off because we
Yeah,
were gonna be doing things that we shouldn't have or would not have been comfortable doing.
exactly. Um, and I think when you talk about 2 years, like you said, may not seem like a lot, but as a
Mhm.
child, or as you're developing ages, I guess, it's super significant, absolutely super significant, because you start to, and I also say this because, for example, like my younger brother, um
Mhm.
he grew up in a household full of adults, because at that point, as he was growing up, like we were all grown already, so he quickly became very engaged in adult conversations.
Yeah.
He liked picking people's brain in the sense of like of knowledge and science, and like, you know, carrying conversations. He liked that rather than playing with toys and all of that. Like he still did, but nothing compared to what we did. And it was mostly because his environment was full with people with mature
Mhm.
conversations, and that's what he was building himself up to. So in this case with us, somebody who's 2 years older, like, again, they could be super immature and you could be mature and that's kind of why you get along, but they're
Yeah.
still in a different phase in their life. So their thinking is for their next step, which is significantly different than, like you said, okay, for example, for me in school, seventh grade, the way they broke it off was I was starting middle school. And
Mhm.
like you said, in their case, they were starting high school.
Yeah.
A lot changes, especially if you look back to pictures. A lot changes within those 2 years. You're the things you like, the foods you start tasting, the things you become exposed to, and just
Mhm.
all of those kind of things. Just yeah, it makes a difference. So absolutely, I think during those times it was weird. I think my brain has chosen to blur a lot of like
Yeah.
those years. Like I don't even the
Yeah. Like the only memories I think I remember are the ones with the people who were my age.
Mm,
Like with the friend group that we had, I kind of blurred that all out
mhm.
because I'm like, it does nothing for me to remember it now. I mean, like,
Exactly.
I don't have anything against them,
Yes. Again. Yes.
but I I cringe when I look back. I'm like, why was I trying to be older than I was? Like, I should just live my life.
Exactly. And enjoy
But
it a little more, or just embrace. Well, my thing as well is I should have just embraced like my mostly like my mom or my parents, or
mhm,
the idea of being a child and being cared for, and
yeah,
having that sense, again, not having this sense of like pressure or sense of responsibility, because at the time, again, like that's they're just caring for you. They're, just maybe asking them more questions, which I do now. Like I think now when I'm with them, I'll ask them like so many questions, and
mhm,
things that sometimes we overlook, right? We
yeah,
don't ask. But I mean, your parents were your age at one point and thought, things at one point. And so
mhm,
it's interesting, how like sometimes we think that the qualities we have are just like our own thing and we develop them on our own. But
yeah,
I mean, your mama and your daddy made you. So you inherit certain likings
yeah.
that until you sit down and have a conversation with your parents, you start to realize like, oh my goodness, you did that when you were younger. It's your fault. This is why you know
That's
what
why
I mean?
I'm the way I am. Yeah, no, yeah, no. Uh, I haven't thought back to those years in a really long time.
Yeah,
It's
uh,
weird.
yeah, it is. It really is. But it's also interesting how things kind of slowly, I guess, evolved, right? Because I feel like
Yeah,
if it had been left up to me to make the call or to decide like, oh, I'm gonna start hanging out with these people, I don't think it would have like been such a smooth transition.
yeah. Well, I think what was done was at church, they changed it from age group, like our like classes and stuff, from age group to grade.
Oh, that is
And
true.
so we started hanging. That's why we started hanging out more.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I remember because you're older, you would like leave the class, and I was by myself for like 6 months. Or sometimes I would convince the teacher in the next class, like, "Hey, these are all
Oh,
my friends. Can I come hang out with them?" And so, I was trying to like hang out with you because I was like playing catch up. But if they hadn't done that, I probably still would have done the same thing.
mm,
And yeah, because I don't think I would have taken the initiative to be like, oh, I don't know if I should like
that
not
is
hang out with them
right.
anymore.
I think the very significant years were ninth and 10th grade, because that's when
Hmm.
we bundled ninth and 10th.
Yeah.
Everybody else was 10th and 11th grade. And so that I think those were honestly important years,
Hmm.
because that's what brought us closer, and that was like a good I guess discovery, especially for us, to kind of like figure out, like I said, that smooth transition of like, oh, okay, oh, this starting high school, and
Yeah.
kind of getting used to what that is and what it means to be 15 and 16, and how things change
And
when you become
yeah.
17 and 18. you know? And honestly, and personally, when I turned 18, I did not feel like an adult. I did not. I
Yeah.
was not one of those teens that was 18 and all of a sudden I thought I was all that. Like, no. Because
Hmm.
honestly, your age says it. You're 18 and you're 19. And like, I don't, I mean, even at my age now, I feel like now I'm like, okay, there's no going back. This is it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm moving forward. But, you know, I mean, think about it. Like, it was past 20 for me to really feel like, okay, this is, here we go, adulthood. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
didn't
Well, I
really
mean,
think like,
yeah. No, I don't. I felt more like an adult because I like moved away
mm-hmm.
like 2
Right.
months after I turned 18. And I was living in a completely different state. But also, and so like I was like working and then going to school and all that stuff. But then the way that my school was kind of set up,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think you structured. I didn't have that independence that most college kids have.
Mm.
And so I was still like, I'm an adult, but I don't feel like an adult because I can't just do whatever I want, but I can technically do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And so, and then like even now, because I still live at home, right? And but I'm working and I pay bills and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm an adult, but am I?
Yeah, yeah. No, for me, I mean, I for sure, like excuse me, I did have the liberty to do anything and everything, right?
Yeah.
But I think, and this is weird, but I think like not having a car in college still made me dependent on somebody with a vehicle or
Mhm.
public transportation. And
Yeah.
so there was still this sense of dependency that didn't completely, like, I guess in my mind, free me loose to saying, oh, I can drive to the store whenever I feel like it. I can do this whenever, you know what I mean? Like, it was more
Mhm.
like, oh, I can stay on campus longer if I feel like it. It was those little things that kind of broke me off from the sense of like, of the authority of somebody else, but I still had
Yeah.
dependency. So if I wanted to go back home for the weekend, I had to find out, oh, is my roommate going back home
Mhm.
or can my parents come pick me up? So it still brought me back to kind of like, you're not quite there yet. Like you are, but
Yeah.
you're not. So that it was this weird transition of like, yes, adulthood, but also maybe not adulthood. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't
And
think I'll ever feel that way until I'm like officially moved out and by myself.
mm,
And that's not happening for a while because I
mm,
like living at home. But you know, I don't think I'm there yet. Sorry, there's a but yeah, like it's still I'm still waiting for to feel like an adult.
mm. No, and honestly, like I said, I think um I mean, I think the reason why I feel it a little bit more now is because obviously, like, you would think, oh, because you're married, but honestly, I think what's getting me to that mentality is more on the, when you slowly start to think like, plan of like when you have conversations about children, and then what that means and how that changes
Yeah.
the role, and then how you know, as a couple, you talk about like where you are financially, where you are with your personal goals, where, you know, like you start to kind of cover every aspect of your life. And when you view that, then it kind of hits you like, I'm, like I said, like I'm more this way than I am
Mhm.
that way. So now it's like, if there's any aspect of me that I guess we quote unquote could call like didn't have it together, it's not to say that I have to, but it puts into perspective that now it's not, you can't use this I'm a child card, or I didn't know any better, or, you know, because
Yeah.
the world does not forgive you for I didn't know any better. If anything, it's like, well, how
You
old are
should
you?
have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because then
Yeah.
at that point, it's, you know, you're grown enough to find the resources, to find the
Mhm.
answers, to reach out, you know, and now it's no longer like, oh, it's kind of like one of those moments where you have to make a dentist appointment, but you're so used to your mom doing it. At
Yeah.
this point, when they ask you a question, you just kind of want to like look for your mom, like, can you answer that, or can you make the
Yeah.
appointment? You
I
know?
mean, I find a way out of it by creating appointments online for everything because I don't have to call anybody.
Yeah, I get you.
So that's how I roll. But like I've always had this some sort of independence just because that's who I've been.
Hmm.
But like I've been dependent on other people for things that I need.
Mm,
So like it was just weird. But like I don't know.
yeah, I get you.
Being grown up is odd.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It is. It's interesting, but like and this is another thing I've thought about. Like, in the past I've had people ask like, "Oh, give like a quick like I guess in the spiritual aspect like, oh, give your testimony." And it's just like that's so hard to do because I've always assumed that it has to be this like hardship, and then you overcome hardship, and then you're here. And it's also one of those things like I just had moments in my childhood that were cringing, you know, but it's like, who doesn't have those awkward teen years? Who doesn't have those moments where you're just like, I would like to not remember that,
Yeah.
That's just kind of part of like growing up. And, there's so many aspects of being young that are beautiful, the just like kind of, I think we talked about this when we were talking about candles and candle making, how certain sounds, certain smells, certain things
Yeah.
will kind of just take you back completely. It's so crazy. After the service this morning, David and his siblings were sitting in the living room and they were talking about like their childhood. Like
Hmm.
one of them brought up like, "Hey, you remember this?" And they were talking for like an hour and a half. And I was just listening to them. I was on my phone, but I was listening to them, and it was so funny because I was like, "Oh wow, like Caroline and I are going to talk about that." But just hearing them like laugh about like basically reliving it is,
Yeah.
wow, that is so crazy how like you can put yourself in the shoes of young you and
Hmm.
still feel this sense of joy or this sense of like even sense of sadness or anger about certain things,
Yeah.
you know um like I remember choking on an ice cube back when ice trays were a thing before these refrigerators make
Yeah.
ice for
Sorry,
you.
I'm not laughing.
No, you should. It was this big old cube. I don't even know. I was so tiny. I don't even know how that big old cube managed to go down there. But I remember it being stuck here, and every time I would swallow, it's like I could feel the coldness go through here and just kind of come down. And I think I had to wait till it melted, or I was drinking water for it to like. But it was
No. Yeah.
so random memories like that.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of those. Like just right now when you say you were like you choked on ice cream, I remember when I choked on an M&M. And it was because first of all, like you said, we were younger, so we always played by ourselves. And so like I was playing by myself and I was just like in the corner of the living room. And it was like this weird area where our couches hit the wall. So there was just like a corner and there was a lamp in there.
Mhm.
For some reason I was back there just chilling eating M&Ms. Maybe I didn't want anybody to steal them.
Uh-huh.
But I think I just jumped up to say something, and then so I inhaled the same time I had an M&M, and I was like, "Ugh." But nobody was like back there. It was just me at the house. I was like, I'm gonna die. This is how I die in the corner of my living room, death
Speaking of
by M&M.
couches, we ours had like a backing, kind of like it's not a rail, but like the back part of it. And I tried
Hmm.
to pretend like I was like a gymnast. And so I was walking on it, and I remember just like falling right in between it. And obviously I'm thankful that I was not a guy, but that's really bad. And I remember going
Yeah,
into my room and like curling up in a little ball and falling asleep because I was in so much pain. So sad.
yeah. No, I no again injuries. I remember I tried to do a cartwheel in my living room, and my living room wasn't that big.
Hmm.
And then we also had I think tile on the floor, so I put down a blanket. And then as I went to go do the cartwheel, I think the blanket like slipped under my hand. And so like tucked my knees in and I ended up hitting my face on my knee. And my brother was there and he just laughed. That's what happens to most of the stories.
Self
My
beat up.
siblings just laugh. Yeah. I could, a lot of self-injury.
My brother was kind of mean to me. Well, I mean, that made it sound like he was evil, but um, I remember we used to have a swing. I think
Hmm.
swings were very popular back then too, like backdoor swings or whatever. Backyard, not back. So apparently he put a chair on top of the swing, and then he sat me on the chair, and then he swung it, and I obviously fell off, like completely face into the concrete. And he always, whenever he would make me cry, would always like try to calm me down or bribe me so that I
Yeah.
wouldn't tell on him.
No, stop crying. Don't tell mom. I'll give you whatever you want. Yeah, remember that. Oh, my brother never. I don't think he ever injured me like on purpose or like try to do like an experiment where he was like, "Oh, I think this would be cool, but I'm gonna make my little sister do it." It
Mm.
was a lot of like we just got in a fight and so we would hit each other, or he hit me a lot in the face with like a basketball or like a soccer ball. And
Uh,
it was just me trying to play or whatever, and then I was he couldn't play very well with me, and
I've
so
got
he would hit me a lot.
I've gotten hit in the face a lot with a lot of sports
Yeah,
balls.
yeah.
It it's been painful. I think the only thing I haven't been hit with has been a golf ball.
I think I have.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why we had golf balls, but we did. I don't know. But yeah. Um,
Also, like I would try to kick him whenever he would get me mad, and he was very bony, so it would always end up hurting me, and I would always fall on the floor,
yeah,
and he was still laughing. So you can imagine me trying to hit him in the first place, not working, hurting myself even more, and then him still laughing at my face.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, I don't think we ever injured each other, but we did break a lot of things in our house because we tried to play
mm-hmm.
like sports inside the house. I remember thankfully it was always my brother who broke it, and I just happened to be there also playing, and so I could just straight up be like, it was all him, it wasn't me, I didn't do anything, I'm a perfect little girl over here. You know what I mean? So I was able to get away with it, but he was also the boy, so he didn't get in trouble.
Oh well.
How it goes.
Yep. Well, we actually went pretty pretty long.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, I guess we can wrap it up, right?
Yeah.
Just
Well, do you have any like anything you wish you would have changed when you were younger, or like any advice for your younger self that you would give yourself now, or give them?
so let's see. Well, one of my biggest takeaways, obviously, for younger me or anybody who's young now, is don't rush the growing up process. Like I know sometimes it seems like you can't wait to get to a certain point, um, but trust me, like you'll get there, and when you get there, you'll be able to embrace that moment and
Hmm.
move on to the next. Because once that moment's gone, like that's it. Like you can't go back in time as much as you wish. Two, I know that sometimes kids and parents don't have the best relationship, and every home
Yeah.
is different. But if your parents are at home, like make the best out of like finding out what they like. They're human beings too. They've been young before. They don't say things just to say things. Um, get to know them, honestly. Like it's so interesting how much you can learn. And again, like you never know when the Lord's going to take them. So
Mm.
embrace every moment you have with them and make the best of it, you know. It's honestly not worth turning against them for friends or for other people,
Yeah.
or like we talked about that other time, we're boys. Like trust me, the right one will come your way. Don't rush that. Like I don't know. I think that's also like a topic for another time. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know, enjoy being young.
No. Yeah. I had seen this thing when you were talking about your parents, where it was like, how old were you when you realized that your parents were in like a human being with emotions and like stories to tell rather than just your parents? You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
besides that person, it was crazy to think to see, because people were like, oh, it was until I was like in my 20s that I didn't like make that connection. And I was like, we can make that connection right now. Like when you're younger, like ask them a question. Literally ask them how their day was. But and then that's also parents, listen to your kids. Like
Yeah.
if they ask you a question, have a conversation with them. Don't just, discipline them and then that's the only form of communication that you have with them. And obviously I'm not a parent, but how do you expect to grow if there's not a two-way like communication?
Communication, yeah, exactly. Like humor them. There's a reason why they're asking. There's a reason why they want to know.
Hmm.
Um, it's crazy, and let's say you don't. Let's say parent. Fine. Let's not use if it's not parents, like older siblings,
Hmm.
or aunts or uncles or the legal guardian in whichever case. But you know, it's interesting how much you can learn from an adult's childhood, right?
Yeah.
Because times have changed. But not only that, I guess one of the things that my parents, because my dad's birthday was yesterday, and my mom was saying how like my dad wishes he had somebody to like mentor him or like to
Hmm.
certain things that he learned in life. And I was telling my mom, I'm like, you know what? One of the things I love about my dad and I respect so much about him is just like the wisdom he has. He speaks. He doesn't say things just to say it, and he doesn't speak out of emotion. He's always very like centered and like
Hmm.
clear, clear headed or whatever the word is. Um, but you can tell that he wouldn't be that way if he hadn't experienced what he did in life. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to mess up and make mistakes, but it's being able to carry those with you and being able to you know teach others graciously. And so same thing, like whoever's older, like we all have
Hmm.
something in life that we may regret or maybe not regret, but that has taught us and shaped us into who we are, even our cringing teenage like time.
Yeah.
We can now say as adults, like, hey, like it's what we learned. And even though we wouldn't want to go back to specifically those years, had we not experienced it that exact way, we would not be saying what we are saying now.
Yeah.
So enjoy being young. I
Yep.
mean, again, I'm not saying we're old. I'm just saying like, and
Sometimes it feels like it.
sometimes I have to remind myself, like, I'm not old, and yes, I'm not 12, but I'm also in this phase in my life. And again, I don't know, whenever the Lord gives us children, we'll have children. And sometimes
Hmm.
I get all like, oh, it would be so nice. But you always have to embrace like every moment in your life, every
Yeah.
we talked about in Light Roast, right? Make each moment count. Like, just embrace where you're at. And then when you move on to the next phase, great. And that look back, hopefully you can look back and say, oh, I made the best out of that previous phase.
Yeah. It's like stop reminiscing over the past and stop wishing for the future. Just like live with what you're in at right now.
Yep,
Mm.
absolutely.
Oh,
And
who
that is
knew?
to
Yeah, who knew a episode about our childhood would be so deep?
yeah, I know that's crazy. Honestly, I think we could probably go on forever, but
Yeah,
you know, just for
I
the, I
think
guess,
they heard enough of us.
right. Hopefully it was so engaging that they just
Yeah,
followed
I
through.
mean, just hear us next week then.
Right. Half of it this week and half of it next week.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, guys. Well, hope you enjoyed this episode. And we'll see you for dark roast. No, light roast.
No.
I always
Yeah.
forget. Okay. Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.